Okay, hello everyone. Appreciate everyone's patience. This is the LCS Fan Podcast episode 2. Here with your host Danz0r, the washed up Masters ADC, playing League for a very long time. Guess you can call me a League boomer at this point. I'll let Tyree introduce himself.
I'm the hard stuck one trick GP that for whatever reason can't get out of platinum, but glad to be on.
Yep. So, last week we talked about EG MSI, and for this week we're going to be doing predictions for summer 2022 LCS rankings, or I guess predictions for the season. And so, we have TSM, COG, 100 Thieves, Immortals, Immortals, Team Liquid, Cloud9, EG, Flyquest, Golden Guardians. There's no changes in the orgs. There could have been a potential chance if CLG finished bottom 2 this spring of 2022 that they potentially could have been kicked out of the LCS, which would have been really interesting since there's a clause that I believe you have to finish 5 splits in a row of bottom 2, and you have a, like, the LCS can boot you from the league for that. So if I remember correctly, they finished, I think, 7th. Am I correct? 7th or 8th? So
Uh,
so they didn't qualify for that. If I am correct on that. But to continue on, their spring 2022 finish was first place EG, second place 100 Thieves, third place CL, fourth place Cloud9, fifth place Golden Guardians, tied with Flyquest. If they would have finished ninth, they would have been up for review. Yeah, 9 for TEF. Yep, exactly. While Dingentoss, Immortals, CSM, COG did not make playoffs, and we know how badly TSM did that spring split. Tyree, did you, based off like what people were saying, at the beginning of the split, middle of the split, the play-in tournament, even before playoffs started, where the teams finished for spring 2022, how much does this surprise you? And just to also share for our Spotify listeners, on the YouTube version, we actually have an Excel graph up that you can be seeing. So if you want to see how that looks, check it out on YouTube instead of Spotify.
um, I would say the biggest surprise is definitely Evil Geniuses. Like that run towards the end of the split is definitely the most surprising for me. Other than that, I'm kind of disappointed in like TL's performance. I think the amount of hype they had coming in was definitely something like compared to Vitality, those were like the two big super teams, and everybody's looking at
Yeah.
them. And honestly, both of them didn't do well. Like it was just depressing. I think C9 was another big fan favorite that came in, and everybody had strong hopes, especially with Summit, how he was performing, and everybody was like he was MVP. They should be able to win LCS once like TL wasn't panning out. And once again, they kind of fumbled the bag. I think people started to lose hope like once LS left. I think that's another big thing.
Yeah.
A hundred. Go
Keep
ahead.
going.
No.
I was gonna add on to the Cloud9 thing. I mean, LS was like the head of everything, right? He's like the core of that system, and so
Yes, yes.
you remove the core, it's
And
not
then
gonna
still tried to
function
use the
well.
system. You removed the core and still I was like, "Oh, wait, this doesn't work. Hold on."
Yeah, and who knows whether if he was still there, Summit would have been able to unlock like a deeper champion pool or what was going on. But it's gonna be one of those what ifs that unfortunately would never get to know. I think I would say that when LS was in the league, that was the most excited I was to watch the LCS because they were doing some crazy drafts. You finally get to see like all this stuff that he's been talking about for years on his stream, and you're like, wow. Ivern mid lane, who the hell, like what other coach would do some shit like that? So I was so hyped and also so disappointed when he wasn't in the LCS anymore. I think he was someone that I think really would have transformed and leveled up the league. And it reminded me a little bit of like, CLG's run with MSI a couple years ago, where like we essentially created the meta with the, Enchanter supports with Aphromoo. You had the, who he's Aurelion Soul.
The
Then
lane swap
yeah, this
was another thing that a lot of teams weren't using, and CLG was the first to like really use that.
yeah, and I think that if we have any hope ever winning Worlds or any international title, um, I think it's got to be our own style of play, right? I don't think trying to copy the way that the Koreans play, I don't think you're gonna ever beat them at their own game. The infrastructure difference and stuff, like cultural difference, I just don't think it's gonna happen. So having our own set way of playing our picks and whatnot, and sticking to it, I think it's got to be the way to push like the region forward. So I think it was a huge loss to not have LS anymore.
I mostly agree with that. Copying, like if you're just doing like what somebody else is already doing, but you're just doing it worse, then obviously like you're not going to beat them at their own game.
Yeah, which is what always felt like teams with Bjergsen, you know, at international competitions just felt like they're just trying to copy the Korean style and not never do any robes, not do any just play super safe, and and then it hits like 20, 30 minutes, and then you just lose a team fight, and then the game's over. And you just like, and the Korean or Chinese team were slowly getting leads in lane throughout that entire time. So it's, I don't know. But bringing it back, bringing everything back with, you're talking about Cloud9 disappointing finish with Team Liquid for the spring 2022 season. The crazy part is, and again, for our YouTube listeners, you can see the Excel graph. Spotify, if you want to check, Spotify listeners, you want to check it out, just check out find the YouTube link for the podcast. But, Bjergsen got first team All Pro for spring 2022. Centurion got second team All Pro. Bwipo got third team All Pro. CoreJJ got first team All Pro. And Han Sama got first team All Pro, right? Like, this team was so hyped up, and I feel like overhyped. Like, I personally don't think Bjergsen played at the level where he deserved first team All Pro. I think that was just like people legacy voting him in. I don't think that he performed that insane during the regular season. What do you think?
I think honestly, like he, even though he didn't perform that well, I'm not saying he deserved it, but I think like if you look at the mid laners in general, I don't think like some of the names, in my opinion, didn't perform that well at all. Like, in my opinion, this is probably one of the weakest mid lane splits we've seen, and
I
that's also
agree.
because like Jensen wasn't there. It's just kind of hard to rate like, oh, B Jerkson, did really well. It just felt like everybody kind of did decently. I think next split when Jensen comes back, I think the whole field will level up. I think having Jensen really hurt us.
Yeah,
But other than that, I wouldn't say I really don't have a personal take on this. From just watching B Jerkson, I can't say he deserves it or doesn't deserve it. But I will say like it just felt like the level of play wasn't there for mid lane.
yeah, I agree. I personally think that I don't know how to pronounce his name. Too coolly. I
Yeah.
thought he performed out of all the mid laners. Like, I think he like carried his team the most out of all the other mid laners. Like, I thought in the regular season he performed really well. I don't remember him getting absolutely smashed in any of the lanes, any of the matchups he played mid lane. But I could totally agree with you that this is probably the weakest mid lane. I would say pool of players the LCS has had in quite a
Yeah.
while. Especially with like the Fudge swap, and I don't even know how Fudge made top three. Like that.
Yeah, it like I the reason I say that is because like I can't just pick out one name and like, oh, this player deserves to be like first team all pro. Usually I could do that, but I can't. I can't just be like, oh, this player did so well. That's why I really don't have an opinion on it. I feel like everybody performed decently.
Yeah,
Um, but not nobody performed spectacular. Let me put it like that.
yeah. And again, when three, I would say four or 80% of your team, four out of five get between first team and second team All Pro, and you end up third third in a 3-0 fashion. That's a complete disappointment. So, talking about the All Pro, for spring 2022, let's move on to now talking about summer, right? And there wasn't too many roster changes. So TSM, the only change they had was Maple coming in for mid lane. I don't really know how strong Maple's going to be. If I remember correctly, it's I don't think he's been at the same form as he was because he's played at Worlds multiple times, correct?
Yes. I don't know his form coming in. But back in the day, he was like definitely, even for Taiwan, I would put him as one of the best mid lanes, like mid laners. Um,
In the entire
he was
world.
definitely no. Yeah, I would put him in. He's definitely in like the top 10 mid laners at the time. He was definitely better than a lot of NA mid laners. There's really, I would maybe only rate like Jensen above him. Like he's been pretty good and he's been pretty consistent. The only thing about that roster was just like it was just him and it was Maple and some Karsa usually. I think that was the Flash Wolves roster. And those players kind of carried that roster, and everybody, always wanted them to like go to a different region, like maybe
Yeah.
China, and see if they could like get on the team and how good they would be. So now that he's in NA, I don't know, like I haven't watched him too close like recently, so I don't know how well he is, but he should do decently. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, he qualified for. He was on PSG and he qualified for Worlds last year and went 3-3 in the round robin. So, you know, clearly, I just don't really remember his play at Worlds. Um,
Yeah,
so
me neither.
I think it's probably safe to put him probably coming in like top four mids.
I think that's a safe bet too.
Yeah, and unfortunately though, I don't think that fixes TSM's problems.
No, he has problems beyond the players.
Yeah, I think with all the extra drama going on, there's been also Doublets has been talking in his stream about Spica wanting to leave TSM, and wanting him to get out of TSM, and all the drama going on at TSM as well. I can't see this team doing super well.
Every day's a banger at TSM.
Yeah. Every day is a banger at TSM. So, you know, we'll get back to ranking them after we talk about all the teams. So, 100 Thieves, no changes. Tenacity, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Tenacity is still a sub. They didn't really use him at all. Except the very beginning of the season. I thought they're going to try to nurture him into, a mini Someday, but it seemed to be every time that he debuted, it just didn't do very well. And I don't know how scrimmages have gone, obviously. But he was also there at the Houston finals. So I was thinking like maybe they might try to bust him out, but I didn't think so, since Someday I thought was playing at a really good form during playoffs. Of course, they got stomped by EG in the finals, but for the most part during playoffs, I thought Someday was playing pretty well. So yeah, no changes there. No changes to Team Liquid, which I think is actually the most surprising of all the teams that had no changes, because I felt like Whipple played like absolute, you could throw in. He's their academy top player. Okay, yeah, but Whipple I felt like just played so bad in playoffs, like. I'm surprised that they still believe in him and kept him on the roster, because I felt like if they were going to do any changes going into summer, that it was going to be Whippo that was gone.
Really. For me, like it's like the top lane pool did like terrible in playoffs. I think Someday did decent. Summit just had that streak where he just like ran it down. I think a lot of people miss what like Bipple was doing. I don't think he played well either, like you said. But like everybody was focusing on Summit because he got MVP, and then he just went like what was that stat? Like 223 on Renekton in like 3 games in a row. I mean, like
No,
2 games
I
total.
I don't think he played Renekton all three games. Like I think he played two different champions if I remember correctly. But yeah, it was something crazy. It was like two and 27, or even I think it potentially could have even been worse than that. Because that was based off of the winners bracket and losers bracket, right? Because yeah, because
I
Cloud
can't
Nine,
remember if it was.
yeah, because Cloud9, if I'm correct, they
No,
were,
okay, I remember. It was so like right before playoffs.
yeah,
Cloud9 played 100 Thieves, and then he got like bodied in that game by Someday, and then their very next series, I think they played against 100 Thieves again,
yeah,
and he picked Renekton twice, and he got bodied both those games as well.
yeah,
It was just like I remember one time like they were doing like a rise alt into like the team, and they rise alted Renekton in, and they were basically like sending in free gold. Like that
yeah,
clip was hilarious.
yeah. I
He
remember
was so
seeing
behind.
I remember seeing LS's reaction to that. He was screaming his head off. How useless Redacted is. So, like, but back to Bwipo. I like I said, I just think that he played so terrible in playoffs that I feel like for the amount of money he's probably getting paid, and again the caliber of where this team should have finished, like that level of play, I felt like was just really unacceptable, and so that's why I'm still surprised that he's on his roster. So we'll see what happens. Do you have any more thoughts about like Bwipo or Team Liquid at all?
Um, my final thought is like if you replace Whippo right now, like if you give this team another run, I think you should probably sub in like an academy top laner, just to like balance it out. And in case like this does go bad, you're developing new talent for like next split. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like kind of light a fire underneath his ass.
Yeah, yeah.
Although I
That
kind I
that
kind
also
of
helps.
feel like I have the negative effect on him. Like I just feel like some of these I feel like some of the pro players just have such massive egos sometimes where like if they get benched at all for any reason, like they just like kind of mentally check out, and like they just like feel like they should never be benched at all because they should always be a starter. So I mean again I don't know how that will
Yeah.
go if we actually light a fire underneath them. Um, but we'll get back to Team Liquid expectations in a bit. So Cloud9, Fudge went back to top lane as Jojo Pion said. He was gonna clap him so hard that he was gonna go back or send him back to top lane or whatever. And well, that mission accomplished. Fudge did go from mid lane to top lane in one split. I do think that he's probably better off top lane. I felt like when his rookie season 2021, he performed so well, and honestly, he was the best performing member of Cloud9 at Worlds, in my opinion. So, oh, actually, wait, am I even wrong? Was it 2020 Worlds or 2021 Worlds?
Uh, 2021 Worlds, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. I was making sure I had my timeline correct there, but yeah, he performed. I just think that he's way better top laner than he is mid laner, and we'll see how that goes. But the biggest thing is Jensen is back. In my opinion, the best mid laner in the LCS for quite a bit, and I think he's been robbed of first team All Pro quite a few times from Bjergsen in the past, despite I think being the better performing mid laner. What are your thoughts on Jensen coming back?
Could you repeat that? I missed the question.
Oh, what are your thoughts on Jensen coming back?
My thoughts on Jensen coming back is it'll be great for like the rest of the mid laners. I think it just having a better mid laner there just like increases the talent pool that's already there. Hopefully, we get to see some good matchups between Jensen and Bjergsen. That's what I'm looking forward to. I think Bjergsen's kind of just holds like a title right now, and I don't think he's really been performing up to what his title demands. Like if you remove the name cards on like TSM, you be asking, is this B Jerkson? Like that's kind of how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm really happy to see JoJo playing. So like for me, it's really gonna be if we were to rank the mid laners next split, I really want to see JoJo at number 1, Jensen at number 2, and then maybe B Jerkson at 4th or 5th if he plays the way
Wait.
he played last split.
Hold that thought. We'll get to ranking those as well
Okay.
in a bit. And then the big actually, this has kind of been a change. Has been underneath the radar. I don't think a lot of people have been talking about this, but Sven has swapped from ADC to support.
Yes, yeah. I saw that.
Yeah, and as historically, it seems to be when ADC swap from ADC to support, they sometimes win world championships like Core JJ. So, you have one of the best supports ever in the LCS with Aframu as another example of someone who swapped from ADC to support. So, Sven has always been known as a grinder. He just grinds solo queue, and he's such a hard worker. Jack praises him publicly quite a bit about how much of a grinder he is and the hard work that he puts in. So, do you have any thoughts on the Sven swapping to support at all?
My thoughts on this is an ADC player always knows what they want. So like when they go to support, they know exactly what the ADC needs. So it's always, I think that's one of the aspects. And you've already been in the lane, so you already know what to do in lane. You learn so much. It just, I think the difference between ADC and support is ADC is more mechanical role, and it's like the support always pilots the ADC. So
Yeah.
like if you ever watch like Mecha, basically the fucking support is the pilot, and then the fucking Gundam is like the ADC player.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to see that happen.
Yeah. And, I think that since he's such a grinder, I think this is going to, be a fine swap. I don't think he's going to do like a bad job or anything like that, especially since I'm sure that they had tryouts for this and, Sven most likely performed because he had multiple options for supports, if I remember correctly. And they still decided to go with Sven. So I trust that, again, I know C9 got memed for their systems, right? But I do think that there is some legitimacy to their systems because they have consistently been the team that performs the best at Worlds, makes it at Worlds, and doesn't really choke at Worlds often, right? Now, they might not win the split, but they do perform when it matters. And I guess you could argue that playoffs does matter, right? But I guess in international competition, they perform, right? And so, with LS gone, and I'm going back to their core systems, right? Again, if people want to meme on it, it's fine. I think it's gonna be fine. And we'll get back to the prediction of that. Do you have any last thoughts on Cloud9 before we move on?
To speak on their systems, like I don't have anything against their systems, like you said. I think the bigger complaint was like you brought him in knowing you had systems in place already.
Yes,
and like you had to stick to it if you brought him in.
I completely agree. Yeah, we didn't touch on that when we talked about LS earlier, but I agree. Like, you knew what kind of person you were getting when you brought LS in, and it's not like it's a secret, right? Like, both of us, like, who are working for a professional team, know that LS is very outspoken about the way he wants to play the game and how he sees the game. And if you hire LS and hire his specific staff that he wants and gets the players that he wants, you're going all in on the style and the system that LS wants. And to hire him and then fire him for not sticking with your systems, I guess mutually parted ways. And it didn't specifically state exactly why he got rid of. You could just infer between the lines that, something went wrong with the systems in place and Cloud9 and LS's systems, and there's a clash and whatever, right? But it was just really weird that he would do all this and spend all this money, because they also were doing, like, I think they're getting his Korean citizenship too, and that's like $500,000 you have to pay or something like that, which is one of the reasons why he also joined Cloud9. So it was just such an investment into LS to then not go full throttle with it for at least one split. That's what pissed me off, right? And I think that's what pissed off a lot of fans too.
If you remember, there was also a kind of similar situation that happened, and it was in CLG. I can't remember the year, but CLG brought in Monte Cristo to coach like remotely, and essentially it didn't work out, and they like removed Monte Cristo like from half the like I think with like in middle of the split.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted Monte Cristo. Monte Cristo, if you don't know, he's also a very outspoken person.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know Monty. I watch a lot of his content.
Yeah, could you repeat that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I watch a lot of his content.
Yeah. Okay. But following on, like, I feel like if CLG just kept like Monte Cristo, like he was the one that was saying, Korean boot camp when everybody else was like, no, we'll just stay here. We already know how to play the game, and now you see teams do it all the time, just Korean boot camp. So like, I feel like LS is kind of in like a similar situation as Monte Cristo back then, where like they weren't willing to commit all in because they felt like his ideals or like what he wanted to implement was like not worth the time or investment.
Yeah. And adding on to the Monte Cristo bit, he actually recently talked about that stunt when he was coaching CLG, and like they just wouldn't listen to him at all or do the comps that he wanted to do, and wouldn't do the comps that like they were doing in scrims and stuff on stage. It was just really weird. So, like if you're not gonna follow the comps and stuff, like it's just, I don't know, it's just really weird. But moving on from Cloud9, the systems, we got Golden Guardians of Licorice, Predstalker, Blaze Olive, Stixxay, Ole. The only change here is Stixxay to the AC role. I said this before in private. I don't think Stixxay should be the LCS. There are people who said that he performed super well in Academy. I personally do not care. I think we need to move on from Stixxay, bring some fresh new blood. I think someone like Prismal should have been starting over potentially Stixxay. I think there's also other ADCs. There's that one ADC. There's a ADC in EG. EG is like Prodigy, or I think it's like Academy. I think Shiro. That dude is insane. He was grinding Korean solo queue while EG was over there, and he got so high in the ladder in Korea. I just think that a fresh new blood would be better than Stixxay here, but clearly Golden Guardian saw something in Stixxay. Didn't want to keep him there or bring him on. Do you have any thoughts about that?
So like I hadn't been watching Stixxay super close recently.
Yeah.
But like the time he was on, main team and he was doing well, I always thought he was a mechanically good player. But I also agree with the sentiment that like NA is the only region that I look at the rosters and say like, oh, okay, this player's been in here for like 5 splits and he hasn't really done much. If you go over to Europe, they always have fresh talent. They'll really only keep the star players and then fresh talent. Like you won't see somebody like Stixxay come back into the league. It just doesn't happen unless they're performing really well in like a smaller league and then they come back into the main region. So like for me, I wish that NA would be more willing to try out new players. I think that's also a concern I have, and I also don't like academy players just being in academy just to still a check.
Yeah,
but that's a different subject.
Well, he was the assistant coach for the academy roster in 2022, and then he joins the academy roster, like the actual academy roster, as a player, despite the fact that he was the assistant coach. And then he is now going from assistant coach to on the academy roster to now. Actually, he rejoins the academy roster as a according to the wiki, he leaves the Golden Guardians Academy main roster March 4th, joins March 4th as a positional coach for the academy roster. And it's just like he just keep flip-flopping around like in our organization, like what the heck he does. Like I said, I think his time in the LCS is done. It's move on. I think put some fresh new names. It's like you said, I don't see like in other regions these players being recycled in this way. And I don't think that, he was a part of COG roster, that also did so terrible for numerous splits, right? Like, I don't see a resurgence in his career here. I think after this split, it's the final nail in the coffin. I'm sorry to the 6A fans out there. You can maybe make me eat my words. We can revisit this in 2020, 2023, or at the end of 2022. We'll see.
Just to follow up on the Stixay bit, I kind of like Stixay as a player, but like I agree, like even though like I like these players, there's nothing wrong with like liking them, but like if we being realistic here, we definitely need fresh new blood to come into the LCS.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, moving on from the 6A hate, we'll go to CLG. And they have Jenkins, Contracts, Palafox, Luger, and Poom. If I am correct, I don't believe there's any changes. If I'm correct, am I wrong?
Honestly, I hadn't been paying attention to them, so if there were, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is too is that the CLG on the LoL fandom wiki isn't even updated for 2022. Like, there is no timeline for them. So whoever has been keeping this updated for all their teams just said, screw CLG. We're not going to keep this updated for them. So I believe that there was no changes from my understanding. I mean, honestly, it's like you said, I'm not really paying too much attention to CLG. I don't think this roster, finishes top 6. But we'll get back to the rankings after. Like, there's a reason why I'm not, huh?
It's so heartbreaking for me because I was the original CLG fan. Like, I love CLG, but like to see them in this state is just kind of sad. Like, they were at one point like a top 3 team in the LCS. They had like the number 3 biggest fan base, and just to see them fall to the wayside so fast is depressing. But it's understandable. Again, why it happened.
It wasn't really fast. I'll say it's been within the past 5 years, a half a decade. I think it's been a slow churn downhill. I personally think, I actually was kind of rooting for them to finish bottom 2 so we could have a new organization, potentially get Mr. Beast to finally get his LCS team, and, had gotten to double lift Jensen and gone crazy. I would like to just see some crazy shit like that. Just a new org, bring them in, but.
Speaking on that rule, like the finish like last like 5 times seems kind of a lot. So for me personally, I would do more of a rule of like twice in a row you finish like bottom 2, and then somebody could challenge for your spot. I think that's a more acceptable rule.
I think 3. 2. I think 2 is just like. Well, I think 3 or I don't know, because 5 is tough, right? Like, COG. I mean, COG barely didn't end up 9th, or like 9th for this split, and I think it's just ridiculous that they still get to be in the LCS despite narrowly just finishing not in 9th. They didn't make playoffs still, so I don't know. Like, I think that the rule should be changed to 3 or 4 splits. The reason why I don't like 2 is because if you truly are trying to develop a roster and you're like not trying to win right now, but you're trying to win next year or like a year and a half or something, you truly are committed to like a developmental roster. Like, I think like Gordon Guardians does a good job with like a developmental roster. Like, how what's it called? Not Abadage, FBI, Huhi, and I can't think of their names right now. I guess DeMonte was a part of that crew, right? And then also Closer, But I guess as a close to FBI and Hui, right? Like, I feel like they did develop on Golden Guardians, and they didn't finish top 3, but they had promise, and they got sold to 100 Thieves, and they win a split. They win the next split, right? Like, with the right pieces. So I think Golden Guardians has already done a good job with developing talent, and so I don't feel like if you're an organization that's committed to trying to develop talent, and you for 1 year you just end up bottom 2, I don't think you should be kicked out. 3 or 4 in a row, yes. I think 5, because it's just 5. 5 is so, you have to be so.
That's 2 years. That's 2 years.
Over 2 years.
Yeah.
Like, to be shit
By
for
the
that long.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No. I mean, to be shit for that long, like, that's hard. And COG almost did it.
Okay, and then another thing is, like, 2 years is like the entire year a team might stay together. Like, to keep a roster 2 years is really, really hard. Like, a lot of times 2 years you have a whole new roster. I think maybe there's been a few cases where you keep one player, but other than that, you usually have a new roster by the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole other topic. I think that teams shouldn't be completely changing rosters year after year. I think that you should be keeping the players a bit more, because I think that builds more fans and builds more retention with the league. And I think Travis Gafford has been very open about his stance on that the constantly churning out players is bad for the league itself. But whole other topic right there. But the bottom line is that COG it hasn't really had too many interesting players, so I haven't paid attention to them, and I probably won't be paying attention to them this upcoming split. So moving on to Immortals, as we said before, they did not make playoffs, but if I remember correctly, they were like 1 game off of making playoffs. It was pretty close within that 7th like that, between like the 5th to 8th or 5th to 9th. It was like all like 1 game away or 2 games away or something. It was really close in spring. So the roster is Revenge, Kenvi, PoE, Lost, Ignar. The change that they did was that they had Wild Turtle and Arrow like subbing in and out. It seems to be Wild Turtle. He is my favorite player, and I have a photo of me carrying him at MSI 2015. And it pains my heart to say that I don't think we're going to see Turtle anymore in the LCS. Maybe Academy, but I don't think he's going to want to play in Academy. And I personally thought he played better in Arrow. Maybe I'm just a Turtle fanboy speaking, but but they now replace Arrow with Lost. And I don't really think it's too much of an upgrade there. The biggest thing about this roster, though, is Kenvi joining. And Kenvi, I believe, was 100 Thieves next jungler. And he's had a lot of promise and a lot of hype around him, like joining the LCS. And there's been a lot of talks about he should have been LCS already, just due to how good of a player he is. Do you have any thoughts on Immortals with like Lost, with their, Lost and Kenvi joining? Or have you heard about Kenvi at all?
I haven't heard about Kenvi, and like speaking on Lost, I always thought he was kind of a mediocre player. He never really surprised me. I don't think he's terrible, but I just think, this is a player that definitely deserves to be on like a middle of the pack team. Then following up, I think, could I ask you a question? Like, what do you think about like Power of Evil as a player?
I just think that he has been the same player for a very long time. And if it's his meta, he does well. If it's not his meta, he doesn't do well. And I just think that I don't know what it is that he can't seem to learn any other champions other than like Ori, Syndra, Azir. And I can't think of any other champions that he performs well on. Like, I don't know. It just seems to be like, I also still remember too, when he was on TSM, there was a TSM Legends video where Bjergsen was telling him to play more solo queue and like the rest of the team. And like, they kind of just ignored his ass. So, I think that he has his flaws as a player, but he also has his strengths. I mean, he did finish top 2 back in, I believe, 2020 on Flyquest with Turtle. So it's just so weird, right? Like they
Yeah.
both of them as players like performed so well on, and if I remember correctly, it was 2020 when the Flyquest finished second in spring and summer, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. And I thought they performed pretty well, and then it's just like I like I said, I just think that Power of Evil just has this innate weakness where he just, if it's his meta, if it's his meta, if it's not his meta, it's not his meta. And I think with this upcoming meta with the durability patch in his champions, I don't think he's gonna be doing super well. And let's see. I mean, I think the Zero, I think might be fine, but I think this upcoming meta, like, I don't think he's gonna do super well. What are your thoughts on Power of Evil?
So you kind of hit the nail on the head. The main thing about Power of Evil for me is like, I feel like he gets praised even though he doesn't deserve it at times. Like, if you remember, Power of Evil's always gotten a lot of praise for just like, in the matchups where he does go against someone like B. Jurickson, like, well, specifically B. Jurickson, and he a lot of times in the head to head when he was on a different team, he'll beat B. Jurickson, and everyone would go, "Oh, Power of Evil's so good," but like he'll be like mediocre, like in his own region and throughout the split, and like even when he's on the top team, he's never really the reason why that team is winning specifically. He's just kind of there, and I feel like people praise him when he does do good into like certain players, but then like every other thing he does is kind of just like mediocre to me. Like he's always seemed mediocre. Um, like not no hate towards him individually, but I feel like he's never been the player that people praise for being just mechanically good or just being sound in lane or just having good roam through team fights. You always see him get praised when he plays against a specific player and does well. So for
Yeah,
me,
or a counter
I just
matchup.
want, yeah, exactly. So for me, I just want to see him, if we're talking about like improving points, I want to see him, come in and stump the league, do something that, surprising, that would
Yeah,
surprise us.
yeah. Like I don't. It's tough, right? I don't think that he's a bad player. I just think that if it's his meta, it's his meta. If it's not his meta, it's not his meta, right? And he just can't seem to adapt, right? I don't know what it is about him. Maybe it might surprise us. Again, 2 years ago, he finished second place, on Flyquest, 2 splits in a row. So, but in TSM, or his short stint in TSM, that was not impressive at all. So, I guess we'll move on to Dignitas, where I believe the only change that they had was Gamsu rejoined the league. It's been a long time since Gamsu was in the league, and
Wasn't
on
he playing
Dignitas.
Overwatch at one point? He was playing like Overwatch at one point and
Yeah,
ranked
yeah,
like really highly.
he left League to become an Overwatch pro, and now he left Overwatch to become a League of Legends pro again, and he got the slot on. Yeah, he was a Overwatch pro player. Yeah, and now he got the starting slot on Dignitas, and I don't think that Dignitas is like, yeah, this guy was a pro 6 or 7 years ago. Let's just give him the slot. No, I obviously probably he tried out and earned the spot and must have really impressed in scrimmages and stuff. So I haven't watched his stream or watched any of his matches or kept up anything like that to know like what kind of level he's at. If I remember correctly, he has been playing on was he playing Academy? I don't even know. Like I don't
remember.
I don't really follow Academy closely at all. So actually, let me see. He was on 100 Thieves Academy last year. Pretty much, he was on 100 Thieves next, and all of last year he was on 100 Thieves Academy. So, and I didn't, like I said, I didn't really pay too much attention to Academy. So, I guess he performed really well during that time. Excited to see how he does in the rest of the top lane pool. Any other thoughts on Gamsu and Dignitas?
Well, I could kind of speak on like his past a little bit. He's always been a pretty good top laner. He's just always been like, I think people like refer to him as a tank player. You know, he kind of had that thing where like he played tanks and like people didn't think he could play carries that well. So like for me, him coming in, just want to see where he's at. I don't really have like an opinion of him now because it's been so long. But before, yeah, he was definitely a good top laner, but he was definitely, oh, he's a tank player. You know, I feel like a lot of people give that role to top laners if they're like a carry or they could do both, or if
Yeah.
they're just a tank player. And I think he's one of the people that people looked at as, oh, he's a tank player. He's not going to carry you, but he'll be there for the team fights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he changed his play style or, you know, he'll be more unleashed. But I just hope to see, you know, him just do well in top lane.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the more competitive the top lane pool is, you know, the better for the region. So I'm hoping that he performs well. So moving on to EG, no changes. I mean, they did have the MSI. I mean, some people call it level up, some people call it a curse. You know, they have not had a break. They only had a 2-week break since spring, while some of these teams have had like a 2-month break if you didn't make playoffs. And for some of these other teams that got 3-0'd by them, they've had a month-long plus break of competitive. So, you know, no changes there, just potential level up. I think the players that got a level up from MSI, it's got to be Jojo Pyun. You know, we'll talk more about him in a bit, but I think he's the sole player that got, in my opinion, a level up from MSI. Any thoughts on EG before we move on to Flyquest?
Final thoughts on EG. I just want to see them play better around like bot lane.
Yeah.
Mainly. But I feel like they're not going to come in too hot, but I don't expect them to come in cold either. So I'll say they'll be like middle of the pack, and I think towards the end of the split. Well, not
Wait, no
towards the
rankings,
end.
no rankings yet. No rankings yet. No rankings yet.
Okay.
We're almost there. So the last team we got to cover for roster changes is Flyquest, and Flyquest is Kumo Hosediodo Tukuli, if I pronounce it correctly. I'm so sorry if you ever watch this VOD. Johnson Aphromoo. I thought Johnson Aphromoo was one of the strongest bot lanes of spring 2022. And I also think that Tukuli, like I was saying before when we were talking about the LCS All-Pro voting, where he got second for mid lane as a rookie. If I'm correct, that was his first LCS split, correct? Spring 2022.
So.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure as well. So I think him getting second on his first split, I think is pretty impressive. Yeah, that was his first LCS split. He has been a pro for a couple of years, I believe, in the French league, if I am correct. Is there a French league or is it a European league? But it was not. But it wasn't like
league, yeah.
Yeah. But it wasn't from like the LEC, right? It was like one of the minor European leagues, which they are very competitive. Don't get me wrong, but it's not the same level as the LEC, of course. So yeah, you know, but still very impressive for his first split NNA, getting second team All Pro. I think he really deserved it. Like I said earlier, I think he deserved first team All Pro. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how this team does. So, any last thoughts on Flyquest before we move on to rankings?
I don't really have an opinion on Flyquest. I didn't watch him that much, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I think but I did watch a little bit of the mid laner, and like you said, I think he's developing. I think you definitely stick with him. Hopefully, he can become, you know, one of the greats. Other than that, I don't really have any opinions of Flyquest.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, now we can get to the juicy part of ranking teams for summer 2022, right? We went over all the changes for potential teams. Well, not potential, all the roster changes that happened for the summer. We also went over what the all team pro first, second, third all pro teams were for spring 2022. the 2022 finishes, spring 2022 finishes. So we now get to the juicy part, right? Now, where do you think should we start? From like the bottom up, top bottom, or start from the halfway down? What do you think is like the spiciest way to go about trying to rank these teams?
For me, I would. So you just want me to give my ranking straight out, or?
No. Like I'm asking you, what do you think would be the spiciest way to go about ranking the teams? Should we go from 10th to first? Start from 5 and down, and then go from 5 to 1, or 5 to 10 and 5 to 1. Should we go from 1 to 10? How would you want to go about this?
Okay. Let's go from 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
I think that's a spicy. I think everybody knows who's already on the bottom. So.
Yeah. Well. So actually, and something real quick. For spring. No, excuse me. For summer, for the LCS Summer, in spring, top 6 teams make it to playoffs. Bottom top 8 teams actually make it to playoffs for summer. Am I correct? I'm pretty sure.
I think that's correct.
Yeah,
I believe so.
I'm pretty sure I'm correct because they changed that. There's like more teams that start off in the losers bracket. And I think less teams that start off in the winners bracket, if I am correct. Let me do a quick double check. I'm gonna look at the 2021 season, then look at the championship. Yes, I'm correct. We have 8 teams. You have 4 teams in the upper bracket and 4 teams in the bottom bracket. So we're going to start off then with the 2 teams that will not make playoffs for this summer. Okay. Would you like to go first?
Yes. 1 second. Let me see. I think, if I'm being honest with you, I don't think there's really any other teams you would put here. I think the first is definitely CLG.
Damn. Coming from the X, well, I don't know about X, but CLG's #1 fan in the past.
Previous #1 fan, also a 6A fan. So, I guess I could see the next one as a little debatable. But I think everybody's looking at, I would say, probably Immortals. Immortals for me, just they just don't look like a team that's gonna do anything. But you might have somebody else there. That's my ranking.
Ooh. Okay, this one. This is a tough one. This is so tough. I'm looking at between. So the bottom 2 has got to be between like GGS, CLG, Immortals, Untitled, Flyquest, right? Really TSM. So, this is a tough one. Okay.
I have TSM. I am not gonna say it, spoiler, but like.
Okay. Wait. Hold up.
Go ahead.
Oh man, they have Ole, Licorice, Pride Stalker. The thing is, I thought Pride Stalker in spring played really well. I think he was like the shining light of that team. Like Pride, in my opinion, it felt like Pride Stalker was carrying them to wins, like just out jungling people. But man, I'll be honest with you, I'm a straight up 6A hater. I really do not like the fact that he's back in the league. So dude, this is tough because I thought Bifrost and Neo played pretty well. I think Blue is kind of eh. And then Immortals has Ignore, and they brought back Ignore, which again finished 2nd place for PoE in 2020 spring and summer, right? 2/5 of that roster from Flyquest, and they brought in Kenvi. So I cannot agree with Immortals finishing bottom 2. Oh wait, yeah, you said MT. So I gotta put CLG at my bottom as well. The tough part, the one I'm having the most trouble is 9th. Like, oh man. Dude, it's tough. I mean, I'm just gonna say GGS.
Okay.
I love my boy Nero. You know,
That's fair.
who coaches GGS, but you know, this is tough. This is actually really tough. I didn't expect for me to struggle this much of like the
Yeah,
bottom two.
I looked at it. I was like, oh, this is gonna be easy, and I was like, oh man, this is actually kind of hard.
Yeah, no, I I I think I believe in Immortals and Flyquest a bit more. So, you know, you have COG at 10, number 9 IMT. I have GGS at 9. All right. So now we're gonna do the starting heading towards now the middle pack. So we'll do 7 and 8 next.
All right. For you,
Okay.
I guess 6 is like that wart that you get rid of, and it just keeps coming back.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just trying to get rid of it, and it just keeps coming back.
Yeah. I'm trying to find how to do a cross through the middle, and it doesn't seem to be letting me do it. So, you know, we're just gonna I'm just gonna instead of having it
I
be like a yellow highlighter, I'm just gonna make it be like blue to mean like both of us chose it already. So okay. So what do you want me to go first this time?
yeah, you can go first.
Okay. So my number 8 and number 7. Ooh, this is a tough one. Okay, so my number 8. Oh man, I'm gonna put Dingatos at number 8 for me. I think that they will make playoffs, obviously, but actually, and just to be clear, is this the predictions for where they finish the regular season, or where they finish like playoffs as well? I'm assuming playoffs, correct?
Let's do playoffs.
Playoffs,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
playoffs. Okay, yeah,
that's more fair.
yeah. I think Danny Thomas is good enough to make it to playoffs, but I think their season is going to end at 8th. So 7 for me would be. Ooh, actually, wait, what? We forgot about something. TSM.
Yeah, no, TSM isn't that high. Like, I already know
No,
where I'm gonna put them. They're not that high
actually,
for me.
no. I
So-
actually, you know what? No, I'm putting TSM at number 8.
Oh, okay. I didn't put them that low, but they're
I
like, listen, they're a few up. They're
Dude,
not that
I
far.
mean, there's just always something. If you think TSM's bottom 2, no, I don't think TSM's bottom 2. I think TSM is number 8. Like, I don't know. I think there's just too much going on at TSM, and I don't think that just throwing in Maple like fixes all their problems. So, I have higher hopes, with other teams. So, and actually going back, I'm gonna put Dig at number 7. Although I guess technically speaking, 7 and 8 don't matter. It's technically a tie. So that's my TSM's top 6. Hey, we'll see. All right, where are you? What are your 8 and 7, Tyree?
Okay, this is kind of hard, but I'll start. I'll start where. Let me see. Uh, I guess my next team definitely would be Golden Guardians, and
Oh,
then
so GGS for number 8.
yeah,
Okay.
and then I also agree with you. This is where I'm putting TSM as well. It's not that much harder, but like I feel like at least like with Maple coming in, I don't think Maple. I think Maple's a really like I said, I haven't watched him too much, but I think he knows the game well enough not to end up like 10th place. I think he'll drag the team to at least 6th. Like that's my only hope. I think Spick is still good. I think this split is just an outlier. Like I don't expect TSM to do this bad anymore. But like this split was definitely a wake up call for them. But I don't have high hopes for them either.
Yeah. Okay. So we both put.
I think they just have a enough talent to finish 6th. Let me put it like that. They shouldn't finish any lower. The fact that they finished
But
where
you
they
put
did this split.
You put them 7 though, but you say they should finish 6. So
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm in 7. I apologize.
at 7. Yeah. Well, 7 and 8 are technically a tie. So, you know, wherever you put them, I guess to be fair, this will also be strength relative too. So, I think that's also fair to put him at 7 if you truly do think so. I think that strength wise, I think Dig would still be at 7, but technically he's still finishing the same spot. So we both have TSM, GGS, COG. Okay, so now they could have won with Bjerg. Yeah. So now we are going to go to 6 and 5. This time you go, I guess. We'll go on and off.
My next place is Immortals. I'm not Immortals. I apologize. I was looking at the Flyquest. This is where I would put Flyquest.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Dignitas, and then I'll go Flyquest. Yeah.
Spilled water all over myself. Dignitas.
Yeah, I was looking. I was like, did we not choose Immortals yet? I was like, because it was in blue, and I'm like, oh wait, we did. Okay, I'm trolling.
Yeah. As for me, I think this is where I'm gonna put Immortals. I think that with Immortals, like I'm riding on the Kenvi high and Ignar, swapping in Ignar. I just, I would have much higher hopes. Again, it's like a shaky 6, right? Like, yeah. I'll have higher hopes if they had a different ADC. And I think Revenge has been putting in work, but if they had a different ADC, like bring back Turtle. Like, I don't know about that, but they had a different ADC, I would feel a lot more confident, maybe putting them potentially a little bit higher. But I actually think that then where
did they finish last split? They finished like
IMT?
No, Dignitas.
Dignitas finished 7th. Technically, it's tied with 8th. They didn't make playoffs, but they were 1 game away.
Yeah.
Like that fifth to 8th were like all separated by like 1 game or 2 games. Yeah. It was really close. So I
wasn't that. I think they did pretty well. Like if I remember correctly, like in the middle of the split, but then they kind of had like a fall off. I'm not sure if I remember that correctly, but I wasn't that like too down on Dig like overall when I watched him play.
Yeah.
But I mean, different opinions.
Yeah. Well, I'm putting Flyquest 5th. Like I said. I think Johnson, Aframu. I think Johnson's still one of the most mechanically gifted ADCs in the league, especially from how he originally came in. Aframu too, and also since it's gonna be like such an ADC meta and relying on mechanics more, I think Johnson's gonna have more opportunities to carry. I think Tukuli as well performed really well, and I think probably I would hope that he's probably getting better, or he's going to get better with the competition with Jensen, or being able to go against Jensen. Maybe the level up from Jojo Pion 2, going against him 2 levels him up more. So that's why I put him 5th, but I just don't think they're going to crack top 4, unfortunately. And I think that would be because of Kumo. So now that we both put Flyquest, we both have IMT on there. Both have TSM. We both have Dig as well. We are remaining with our top 4 and we have EG, Cloud9, Team Liquid, 100 Thieves left. So
this is where it gets spicy.
Yeah. So I guess I'll go this time here, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So for 4th place, I have. Man, I'm a 100 Thieves fan. Okay, right now for me, it's between TL and 100 Thieves. I'm trying to decide. Like, I think. Because people were saying that 100 Thieves should do some kind of roster change, and I know I Would Dominate has been very vocal about he thinks that they should make a change with Huhi, but they obviously didn't for the summer, and I think if this team doesn't finish top 2 or at least doesn't make it to Worlds, for sure there's at least 100% some kind of roster change, and I think if there's for coming into next year, and if they don't finish top 2, I think there's guaranteed a roster change, even if they do make it to Worlds at third. But I think that TL, they're not going to find it. I'm putting TL fourth. I think I don't believe in Bwipo. I also just don't feel like Bjergsen is it, right? Like Jensen's back. I think Jojo Pion leveled up. I think Tukuli is also, I think, gonna overshadow him too. Also, I don't know. Like, I just have not been super impressed. I think the only player I've been really impressed with, especially throughout like last playoffs, was Santorin. I think he played well pretty much every single game. I know he didn't get the smite technically, but that was bullshit. They actually patched that out of the game. From I think this most recent patch, they added it in where Baron will not level up while it's in combat. So, you know, that's why I'm gonna put TL. Actually, dude, I don't know, man. 100 Thieves also. Like, oh, this is tough. This is tough. This is really tough.
Dude. It is. I'm thinking about it now.
Because I think
it's so hard.
Here's what I'm thinking about, right?
Yeah.
Between spring playoffs, right? Like 100 Thieves did reverse 3-0 TL. Right? Like, oh man. But dude, FBI played so bad against EG. Man, this is tough. I think they're just both they're both good enough to reach top 4. I don't think they can reach top 2. Okay. I take it back. I think actually it's gonna be 100 fourth, TL third. Or wait, no. I'm sticking with my gut feeling. TL fourth for the memes. It's coming back, and then 100 for third, and it'll just be very juicy because that means that TL will miss out on Worlds despite spending. If I remember correctly, they're the most expensive roster in the LCS, and they're a super team. And I am tired of super teams. I don't think they work. I don't think they do well. I don't think they've ever really worked well. I mean, you look at Vitality in EU, right? Like, I just think that you should try to be more organic with your teams and just trying to. I don't like the way that TL builds rosters. They're trying to pay the most amount of money and try to get the absolute best possible player, like, without, like, I think thinking of more about it, right? Like, sorry, I dominated the conversation for a bit. This is a tough
I agree with that, but that's kind of funny because like all China really is super teams, and there's just a bunch of super teams clashing. Like, buy the most expensive player you can, and just see if it doesn't turn out, go to the next expensive player, buy them.
Yeah.
And it's just a redundant cycle of like trying to make the best super team.
Well, remember, this is the LCS fan podcast.
Yes, I'm sorry.
For LCS, I just don't like super teams. Like, I just don't like them. And how beautiful and poetic it will be for TL to finish fourth. Oh, please.
It really is poetic. It really is poetic.
Okay. So I dominated that for quite a bit. Who is your fourth?
Okay. For me, my fourth will be 100 Thieves.
Okay. Short and sweet. So
the reason I put them there is like you said, it's not even so much about the roster change for me. I think if you look at, like, I'm going on potential, right? I'm not going at like what they did in the previous split or where they might end up. I'm going strictly off potential. And I think 100 Thieves, if you look at all the other rosters, I think 100 Thieves has the least potential out of the remaining rosters to actually, like, the highest they could place. Does that make sense for you?
Yeah, it does. And that's kind of where I was, like, so torn on it, but I just really want TL to finish fourth. Like, I just want to put that thought into, like, the world and let it manifest itself, which is why I'm sticking to my guns with TL fourth.
Okay. um, for me, the next team, and like if I'm going like off of like strictly potential, it's so hard, but I'm going to put TL here as well. I
Okay,
think
so
they get to Worlds. I just think B. Jerkson hasn't impressed me enough to say that he's still the top player he was. Bippo hasn't really impressed me. I think their bot lane is still good, but like if I look at every other roster and I compared them both rosters, I think every other roster has more potential to do well, especially at Worlds. So third, they will end.
okay. No, hey, we just swapped we swapped picks there. Okay, so last two slots, second and first. Cloud9 and EG are left for both of us. Since I went first last time, you go first this time.
I really want to do this, but like I feel like I also shouldn't because I was so high on the like a certain player, but like I put EG second and I'm putting Cloud9 first. I think having Jensen back will like finally make sure they're top again. I'm excited to see him back. But that's my final opinion.
I've been thinking about this too, dude. And we got chat saying C9 first for them. You know, as crazy of a run EG had in spring, I think that they clearly played well and they were the best teams that day. But I also think that the TL and 100 Thieves like underperformed massively.
I agree.
Like as hype as the finals was, and as cool as it fucking was for them to beat both teams 3-0, right, and go to MSI. I still think that both TL and 100 Thieves just massively underperformed. They should. I don't think it should have been a 3-0, right? And I think a lot of other, if I remember correctly, a lot of other analysts and other talking heads in the scene all were saying pretty much the same thing. Like, no one predicted 3-0 both, right? Like the only people who predicted 3-0 for both of those series was the EG players themselves. Not even EG fans.
Not even the
No, not even EG. If the EG fans are out there saying that they predicted 3-0,
oh yeah, I agree with that.
For both series, they are delusional. Okay, like there's no
fair with you, I was gonna put EG third, but I feel like just because Team Liquid players just haven't been playing like really well, and I don't think like their potential is that high. I went ahead and gave it to EG because I still think JoJo is a great player. I still think Impact's gonna turn on like once the playoffs comes, and he's gonna make sure they finish at least second. I just think like overall, I just can't rate Team Liquid. I don't think they have that much potential. I think they have good players historically, but I feel like if you look at how they've been performing now, I don't think they're at that same level they once were.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and you know, I am also going to agree that I think it's going to be C9 taking this title, with EG second as well for me.
Now you make us look like C9 fans.
No, I just really think that, I mean, Fudge was a solid top. Like I said,
yeah, I agree.
Like Fudge was the best performing member of C9 last year at Worlds, and just in general, also in playoffs too. Like, and now they have Jensen back, who, in my opinion, was the best performing mid laner at playoffs last year, and the best performing mid laner for the LCS at Worlds. So you have the best performing top laner at Worlds for LCS, best performing mid laner for the LCS at mid, now in the same roster. You're adding in Sven to support, which I think is actually going to do really well. Berserker's Berserker, and I still think that dude has insane freaking mechanics. Like, you know, I don't think, and I think for playoffs, like, they just didn't enable him, and they just played really poorly. Top side got blasted so damn hard that like it didn't matter what happened bot lane. Like, it was over. So I have high hopes. I also think with the Olaf changes, They're gonna have to be permanently banning Olaf against C9 with Blabber, right? Um, and I don't know. It's gonna be really interesting. Now, do I think it's gonna be like a 3-0 in a handshake? No, I think it's gonna be a pretty competitive between the two. But we will see. I mean, this is some hopium with Jensen coming back.
And like I said, I didn't rate these teams based on like where they would perform, like if they don't do well or if they perform mediocrely. I literally rated these teams based on potential. Like these teams, if they play to their absolute best, this is where I think they would end up.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. And the EG one is also so tough. Like since they have two rookies, and Danny's already been talking about like the potential burnout he's already experiencing, right? He's been very open about it. It's just like, does EG even have the juice and the energy to make it to finals again of summer, right? Like something very interesting in the past, Jack has publicly talked about. I forgot which finals it was. I think because there was a time where like C9 kept finishing second, like second.
I remember that.
And he in an interview, or he was in an interview or talk show, he talked about how like he attributed like because there was like a game 5 where like C9 just got blasted, right? And he attributed to the fact that his players like weren't physically fit enough to handle like a lot long of a series, right? And like they started implementing like working out all the time after that, and then they won their title. I believe it was 2019. This is what happened. Then they won their title in 2020, spring 2020, right? And so it's gonna be really curious to see like what happens with VG with the potential burnout that they might experience, right? Like I think that's a big what if, but it's like you said, they played to their potential. Now, to be fair, I guess talking about potential, TL might be a bit higher, but for both of us. But I just don't think.
So like I don't think the potential isn't there anymore. Like I think we've seen enough of B Jerkson to say like he's not going to be the B Jerkson of old. I think Santorin's still a great jungler, but like Bwipo hasn't been performing. The way TL, if B Jerkson becomes season 4 B Jerk and Bwipo becomes like like early when he first came into the split Bwipo, then TL takes like I think TL could even take first if that happens, right? But like I looked at these players, I watched them. I don't think the potential's there anymore.
No.
We can milk them all we want, but I don't think like and they have core JJ as well. Like they have great players. I think if B Jerkson becomes the old player, Bwipo becomes the old player of their previous selves, they channeled that energy. Yeah, they take first easily. But like is it even there anymore? Like what are we channeling here?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I completely agree with you. I think that if you truly go with the absolute potential, right, then they could be. But I think we've seen enough of TL. Maybe they might hear about this and shut us up in summer playoffs. Who knows? But I feel very confident with my picks here. Okay, so do you have any closing thoughts on your summer 2022 playoff finishes, or just any last thoughts on your picks?
Well, I will say this. I think even if like C9 don't end up being first, I think they'll still come like third and still do the best at Worlds. I think they've historically done well at Worlds, and I think they have the staff there to make sure they don't get like mentally distracted or like I was saying before, just feel that pressure that a lot of teams feel. And I think they could at least make quarters. I think if you look at these teams can all make like. I'm not on Hopium, but if they play like really well, they could all make quarters. But I think there's only going to be one team in the top 4 realistically. But like even top 4, I mean, I'm pretty sure LCS fans would be happy to see a top 4 finish this year.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'll be happy about? That's not even top 4 finish. A format change, because I'm sick and tired of the format for Worlds. I am so tired of it. We go 3-3 and don't get out of the group and never see a best of 5. Like, I am so fucking sick of it. You know, that's what I would like to see. Screw a top 4 finish. I just want to see a format change so we see more best of 5s and see NA teams actually playing a best of 5. And because, you know, the few times that NA has made it to at least playing a best of 5, like, you know, I mean, it's been a handful of times, but there have been some really interesting upsets that have happened. So I want to see potentially more, right? Like, I want to see more best of 5s.
To speak on your point a little bit, like, you know, there's always the counter argument that people like to make. Well, if you're the best team in the world, then surely you would have won the best team. Like, yeah, that argument, yeah, we understand that. But like, a lot of times the teams that get through the quarters aren't like even the top 8 teams. Arguably, a lot of times they just happen to get like a lucky group, and they'd be like, and then those same people will praise those teams like, oh, but they finished top 8. But necessarily, were they a top 8 team? No, not really. But like.
Yeah, it's just so dumb that 6 matches determine whether you move on to play a best of 5 when like a best of 1 is so volatile.
No, the most grievous of that is that if a team does go, like 2 teams do go 3-3, the team that beat them twice goes on. So even though they did worse against the competition, just because they were a better matchup into that specific team, they move on.
Yeah.
So the team that went 3-3, that is the most grievous shit I ever seen. Like the fact that rule exists, like whoever made that rule didn't even think like, oh, that means this team actually did better against the field. Like, but because they had a bad matchup against this specific team, they punished. Like what? Oh my god, that is. I'm sorry. That especially that year that TSM went like I think 3-3 with like RNG, and RNG had like two games on them. They just moved on. Like, oh my god. Yes, RNG probably do beat TSM if they play again, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're gonna do well against the other teams. I think like people don't look at matchups enough. Like I think I'm no hate on RNG. I think they deserved it overall. Like when they finally played, but like the fact that rule is there, like come on. I hate that rule. Like
I hate it. I hate it too. I hate it too. And NA just always chokes and those tiebreakers, bro. And I have to see another tiebreaker choke. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I'm so tired. I'm so tired of seeing tiebreakers and choking. Like I don't want to see it anymore. Please. Some different format, double elimination, best, like please just do something else. I beg of you. I'm so tired of the world's format.
Get rid of tiebreakers get rid of tiebreakers.
Yes, but you know, but going back to the main topic, that concludes our rankings for the 2022 Summer LCS split. So going back, my rankings were first C9, second EG, third 100 Thieves, fourth TL for the memes. And I do actually think that it'd probably be the 4th best team. 5th Flyquest, 6th Immortals, 7th Dignitas, 8th TSM, 9th GGS, and 10th CLG. For Tyree, it is 1st C9, 2nd EG, 3rd TL, 4th 100 Thieves, 5th Flyquest, 6th Dignitas, 7th TSM, 8th GGS, 9th Immortals, and 10th CLG. So here we'll take some viewer questions if anyone has any, and the Twitch chat. We'll also take YouTube questions, but no one left us any questions on the last podcast. Just some very nice comments about the podcast itself, which we really do appreciate. I'm glad that people are enjoying it, and Reddit seemed to really enjoy it too, as well as actually we got quite a bit of listeners also on Spotify. Our YouTube video almost broke 1,000 views, which is pretty crazy for a first podcast episode. So, again, thank you everyone for support. So if you're listening to this on YouTube or Spotify and want us to potentially answer a question at the end of the podcast, please leave a comment on YouTube. But We'll give maybe another minute or so to see if anyone has any topics or questions he wants to discuss in Twitch chat, and then we'll move on. But while we're waiting, we got a question. What do you think of the ego / influence of the players affect the coaches about draft and NA? Well, it's tough, right? Like, I don't know how much asking about Alice getting fired from C9. Well, I think that we spoke about this a little bit earlier. But I think that it's still ridiculous that Ellis got fired for that. I think that if you're bringing on LS, like, you knew what you were bringing him on for, and I think if you're going to be investing that amount of money and that amount of resources and time, you should have followed it to the bitter end and just did a whole split. Like, I think narrative-wise and popularity-wise, like, it was probably the most popular that LCS has ever been in years when Ellis was coaching. I think it was hitting, like, record numbers for the matches because everyone in the world wanted to see, like, how the hell Ellis is drafting, right? So, and I do remember that Fudge stated about, like, he would have to play picks that he wasn't even, like, he didn't even practice at all. And I think that, you could kind of maybe read between the lines a bit where I think that the player was just really annoyed with LS in that regard. Nothing's been, like, fully publicly said. It's just things that I think you slightly read between the lines about that. So, and it's also hard to know, like, what is the ego and what influences, like, the players influence coaches draft, because, like, that's not really, like, public knowledge, right? So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts, Tyree?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that again?
I said, do you have any thoughts on that question from Cat with Pants?
You cut out as soon as you said it. You cut out again.
Oh, okay. Go
ahead.
I said, do you have any thoughts on that question from Cat with Pants? What do you think of the ego / influence of the players affect the coaches about draft and NA? Asking about LS getting fired from C9.
Okay. Well, specifically regarding that, I think if you look historically, I think players have always, like, had, like, a lot of, like, pull in draft, but I think recently, I think it's kind of changed a little bit in NA, but I still feel like players still have, like, some pull. I think for me, I would say it depends on. I think this is really a team by team basis thing. I feel like some teams, players having pull is a good thing, and then other teams, I don't think so. I think it's also like it depends on the mentality of the player, right? If they have a good mentality and it's not just an ego thing, and, like, you just have a superstar player and he's playing really well and he just kind of controls the team, I think that's really bad for the team. Makes me bring up the jungle for that win around teams. I can't think of his name. Dardoch.
Yeah.
If you have a player like Dardoch and he has pull in draft, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. But if you have a player that, like, wants to work with the team, that's known for, like, having good draft, I think, like, someone like Elimination specifically, like, yeah, you let that player influence the draft. But if it's an ego thing and they just don't want to work with the coach or something like that, yeah, I would say it depends on the team.
Yeah, you brought up a great point too, Tyree, since it is a case by case basis based off team. So, for example, Dylan Falco, who is the head coach right now of G2, publicly said in an interview from MSI about, like, if a player feels very comfortable about a matchup and they really want to play that matchup, he's gonna let them play it because, like, he feels like they are the expert, right? Like, if they feel so strongly and so confident that they could play a matchup with a specific champion, he's gonna trust them, right? But for the most part, like, and it seems to be like they're kind of like democratic, democratic, whatever, like, way of drafting where, like, everyone has input, while, like, there's other teams where, like, the coach decides everything, and, like, it seems to be like, I think for EG, Peter Dunn doesn't even do the drafting. He's not even on stage. They have, like, a specific drafting coach who's on stage with EG, who wasn't there at the beginning of MSI, couldn't do remotely, despite the fact RNG's playing remotely. But that's a whole other topic. But but there's some. It just, I think it really varies. But and I think Coward Pants's question also goes back to just Summit and his inability, or I don't know if inability or unwillingness to play tank tops. And we will never know whether it was inability or unwillingness, right? But
yeah, that's also another thing that kind of bothered me. Kind of off topic, but you bring in Summit, he does really well, and I think he did really well because of the conditions that he had around him. And then once he doesn't perform because you're not giving him those conditions, you're like, oh, we're just gonna drop him. But like, it's hey. You could go ahead and speak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if it's necessary conditions that made Summit misperform. I think that it was just because I don't think he was exposed at all during the regular season, and then teams were like, oh, we ban these picks against.
I agree with that too.
We banned these picks against Summit, and he's legit a silver player. Okay, that's obviously a joke. He did not play like an actual silver player, but I just don't think he was exposed that way until playoffs. And I also do think that I think Blabber could have played around Summit better during that series, right? Or those series.
When I say conditioned, I'm not talking about specifically just picks or anything one in mind. But they were giving him a lot of jungle pressure, I feel like, throughout the split. And once he didn't have so much jungle pressure, I think we kind of just seen him not do so well. And then he's unused to and it might feel like I'm defending Summit, but he's unused to having usually the team play more around him. And when that wasn't happening, he just didn't know what to do. And I feel like a part of that was also because he's never been put in that condition. And once he was put there, I feel like he didn't perform. I think you could argue, picks was also a problem. But I feel like if they're gonna build around a player, build around the player and just don't throw him out there to the wayside. And I was never a fan of Summit being MVP, by the way. Just to throw that out there as well.
I think he deserved it for his regular season performance, but that's right. I think that they should give out their award at a different time. I think giving it at the end of playoffs for regular season is just weird, because when you have
I agree.
When you have your MVP perform so terribly in playoffs, it's just a weird award. They literally flew him out to Houston to hand the award, and he left the same day. He was not in Houston the next day for the fan meet with it's just so weird. It's so weird. Give the regular season award at the end of the regular season.
Yes, please.
Before playoffs, before playoffs, or the first day of playoffs, right? Give it out. Don't do it at the end. Yeah. Cat with Pants actually extended his question. We still got a few more minutes left on the 10-minute segment for viewer questions. So again, if you have a question you want us to answer, please drop it in Twitch chat. Is it ego or stubbornness to not be willing to play tank / supportive role in the team instead of being carry? Well, that's the thing, is that we don't have the inner workings of the team, right? So it's tough for me to say that it's ego or stubbornness when I don't know whether or not Summit was truly unwilling to do it, right? Maybe the coaching staff and their analytics and all this other stuff, because they have numerous coaches at Cloud9, right? They truly thought that him playing on Renekton or whatever will result in a higher chance of winning, right? Us as fans and spectators just won't have that information. Now let's go hypothetical situation where yes, Summit was unwilling to play a tank supportive role, is the ego or stubbornness. I guess it depends how is he looking at that matchup, right? Is he looking at it as if no, he doesn't, I don't need to play tanks or supportive role. I I like if he's going to the perspective I don't need to, that's stubbornness, right? If he's going to the perspective, oh, I'll play carry top and I'm going to shit on this laner, he loses and he goes again. Next match is like, oh, I'm gonna play carry top. I'm gonna win this time. Lose again. Okay, this time I'm gonna play carry top and I'm gonna shit on them. And so like that's ego right there. So it kind of depends like how he approach that, which us as fans will never know. Yeah. You have any thoughts, Tyree?
My thoughts on that is, I think generally speaking, top lane's been more of a role where like the player, and I'm just speaking like traditionally, and I don't because like you said, we don't know what happened, on the C9 situation, but for me, top lane hasn't been like always a demanding role. Like in players that usually come into that role, especially when they're new on a team, they just kind of do whatever the team tells them to do. I think there's few instances where that hasn't been the case. But I feel like even the best top laners usually don't have too much of an ego with them. I think you maybe argue like, oh, Huni had like somewhat of that, but like even Huni, I feel like he generally played what the team needs, and they were letting Huni like even though Huni was playing those picks, they were letting Huni do it. Like I think it's kind of a similar situation with C9 where they were just letting him do it. Like he might have said, "Oh yes, I wanted to play it," but there was no argument to stop him from the play it, and he just was like, "Oh no, I'm gonna play it anyway." I think they would if it happens, the team's letting him do it first of all, and they believe in him enough to like give him that authority, even like time may when it wasn't working out. That's my take on it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's also just upsetting too that like the MVP of the league is now not in our league. Like, it's just really weird. Like, I don't know. It's just such a weird feeling. Like, last episode, we even struggled to even remember Summit's name for like 2 minutes or so like that. Like, because it's just like he just came and went. Like, it's
yes.
I know nothing about Summit still. Nothing as a person.
Much like a summit that goes up and then it just goes right back down.
I don't know anything about him as a person or like as a player other than the fact that he plays carry top. Like I know nothing about his story, which I think is a failure of the LCS to provide that story about Summit, like of him as a person to us as like fans.
Name. He has a very fitting name.
Very fitting name. It do be like that. Cowboy Pants says yes, like. And that could be another thing too, where I think that the LCS has been doing a terrible job with the storylines as well. Like, I think they focused a lot about Bjergsen returning, blah, 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 blah. And I can tell you right now, they're going to be all up in arms about Bjergsen versus Jensen, Bjergsen versus Jensen, Bjergsen versus Jensen. Yeah, I'm going to roll my eyes. Like, so I saw they hired quite a bit of more staff for the LCS, especially writers and like producers and stuff. So I think that we might see some really cool stuff coming out from the LCS, like production wise, this upcoming season, because they have been upping up their staffing. So we'll see what ends up happening.
I felt like in the past they did a really good job, like in season 4, season 5, season 6, kind of, where they had like really good storylines. I mean, you have like so many famous memes, like even his teacher calls him Zion Spartan, and like the duos and stuff like that. But I felt recently they just haven't been living up to it. I think there were so many storylines that you just missed.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think that this will be the last topic, and then we'll end the podcast. But I think that another thing to add on as to why why I think the storylines have been a miss the past 2 years is because back in like season 4, season 5, season 6, season 7, you pretty much had similar, like the same roster sticking together year by year, right? With like a few changes. Like think of like 100 Thieves, right? Like where they changed out mid lane. And that was it. And, it felt like that's how most teams operated. It changed like 1 or 2 players. Now you could have one split and nuke the entire roster. Or your MVP is kicked off the team and no one, like, apparently. So
your coaches, coaches don't even get a whole split. They just get half the split and then they're gone.
Yeah. Like, you don't even get a chance to even get the stories of these players, right? And, Jack actually posted on the Cloud9 subreddit that he he essentially forgo like the buyout clause on Summit's contract, or like I think, or even just like willing to just give up his contract for anyone to take him, and no one took him. They want to stick for the top laner, so it's just crazy to me that you'd rather not have the MVP of the league. Despite having very clear and glaring weaknesses, I still think that it's still a player that can be developed.
Yes, I agree.
At least, but it is what it is, right? And I'm sure we could talk about that on the next episode, because we still got I believe, does the LCS start next week or the week after?
I actually do not know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I actually do not know off the top of my head either. The summer season starts the 17th, so that is in 2 weeks. So I do not have the episode for the next podcast set up just yet, but that's going to conclude the episode 2 of the LCS Fan Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening, and thanks for the people who tune in live on Twitch. Probably going to be trying to stick with the schedule on Sundays for the time being until LCS starts. I think we're going to have to move it around once LCS starts. But Tyree, you have any closing remarks for this episode?
No, I don't. Apologize for being late. But thanks for having me again, and I'll definitely be on next time.
Yeah. Cool. Also, I need like a spirit bomb from everyone. I got a final interview for an esports job that is a really, really good fit this coming week. So really hoping I get it and do a great job. So, I appreciate that spirit bomb of good vibes and good energy coming my way. I think we're going to kill it, but it never hurts to get a spirit bomb from the peeps. So that's going to conclude for episode 2 of the LCS Fan Podcast, where we went over our predictions for the summer 2022 playoff finishes. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed. And again, if you want us to answer your questions, please leave a comment on the YouTube video, or be here for the live viewing on twitch.tv/Dan0r. Thank you, and have a great week and weekend.